Hi everyone. So far, we've built the foundations of economics: scarcity, choice, opportunity cost, economic systems, and the circular flow of income. Now, we begin microeconomics proper. We shift our focus to individual markets, and we start with one of the most fundamental concepts in economics: demand. Every day, people make purchasing decisions, whether it's buying good, choosing a school, paying for transport, or subscribing to a service. In each case, price influences behavior, but price is not the only factor. Economics aims to understand, how do consumers decide how much of a good or service to buy? This is what demand explains. Now, the definition of demand is the quantity of a good or service that consumers are willing and able to buy at a given price over a period of time. There are three key components in this definition. One, willingness to buy. Consumers must actually want the product. Two, ability to pay. Consumers must have sufficient income or purchasing power. Three, price. Demand is always considered in relation to price. If any of these are missing, there is no effective demand. The law of demand states that as price increases, quantity demand decreases, all else equal. This gives us the familiar downward sloping demand curve. But why does this relationship exist? There are two key explanations. The first is the substitution effect. When the price of a good increases, consumers switch to alternatives. For example, if the price of private school fees rises, some parents may switch to state schools. Consumers always seek to maximize value. So when one good becomes relatively more expensive, substitutes becomes more attractive. The second explanation is the income effect. When prices rise, consumers' real purchasing power falls. Even if their nominal income stays the same, they can now afford less, so they reduce consumption. This effect is particularly strong for goods that take up a large proportion of income. Let's now look at the demand curve itself. There are three key features. Price is on the vertical axis, quantity demanded is on the horizontal axis, and the curve slopes downwards. This curve represents the relationship between price and quantity demanded. However, it is important to note one assumption: ceteris paribus, meaning all other factors are held constant. This is crucial because if other factors change, the entire demand curve shifts. Now, we must distinguish between movement along the demand curve. This is caused by a change in price. A shift of the demand curve is caused by changes in other factors. This distinction is essential for exam questions and real-world analysis. Now, let's explore the main factors that shift demand. One, tastes and preferences. Advertising, trends, and social norms can increase or decrease demand. Two, income. For normal goods, demand rises as income rises, and for inferior goods, demand falls as income rises. Three, prices of related goods. For example, for substitutes, if the price of one rises, demand for the other increases. Whereas for complements, if the price of one rises, demand for the other it decreases. Four, expectations. If consumers expect prices to rise in the future, demand may increase today. Five, population and demographics. An increase in the number of consumers increases demand. These factors shift the entire demand curve left or right. Now let's apply this to a real-world context. Education. Demand for private schooling depends on several factors: household income, perceived quality of state schools, cultural values, and expectations about university access. Now consider a policy like a tax on private school fees. If fees rise, quantity demanded will fall. This is a movement along the curve. However, demand may also shift if other factors change. For example, if state schools improve significantly, demand for private schools may fall even further. Understanding demand is essential for governments. It helps them plan public services, set taxes, and regulate prices. If demand is highly responsive to price, meaning it is elastic, then small price changes can lead to large behavioral changes. If demand is inelastic, price changes have little effect. This has major implications for policy effectiveness. Now, let's summarize. Demand is the quantity consumers willing and able to buy at a given price. The law of demand states that price and quantity demanded are inversely related. This is explained by the substitution effect, the income effect. Demand curves show this relationship. Changes in price cause movements along the curve, and changes in other factors cause shifts of the curve. The key takeaway is this: demand is not random. It follows predictable patterns based on incentives and constraints. By understanding demand, we can better predict how consumers will respond to changes in prices and policies. Next lesson, we will study supply, how firms respond to prices. And together, demand and supply will allow us to understand how markets actually determine price. Thank you.